File Manager for Hyper-V is an easy-to-use and cost-effective management solution for Microsoft Hyper-V. It provides most of the features of Microsoft System Center Virtual Machine Manager that small and medium businesses need for everyday life Hyper-V management. Let's have a brief overview of File Manager for Hyper-V functions. As you can see, File Manager for Hyper-V console is very straightforward and very easy to understand and use. Also, it is very powerful and it is available even if you want to manage Hyper-V on Hyper-V Server Core. So if you don't have any GUI interface installed on your Hyper-V server, this is absolutely the same interface that you're going to see right there. So File Manager for Hyper-V can be installed right away, right on your Hyper-V host. Also, it allows you to manage multiple versions of Hyper-V hosts. So if you have Hyper-V 2008 R2 SP1, 2012, and 2012 R2, all of them can go within the single tree of File Manager for Hyper-V. So this really makes your life much easier because you don't have to use multiple consoles to manage all of your Hyper-V hosts, and you can smoothly transact from the older Hyper-V version to the latest one with File Manager help. So it will allow you to manage all of them while you're doing your upgrade. Also, if you're still using Windows 7, File Manager can be very helpful for remote management because you can use File Manager for remote and local management, and Windows 7 system is also supported. So if you have Windows 7 64-bit with .NET Framework 4.5 installed, you can launch File Manager on that system as well, and you'll see absolutely exactly the same interface and you'll be able to perform exactly the same functions. So if you're using the Windows 7 and you have Hyper-V 2012 R2, you're still able to manage that. Each host can be added with custom credentials, and I can show you that on one of these hosts. You can see that you can specify custom credentials whenever you add each one of them, and that really makes the product domain independent because you can add each of the hosts for the management with its own credentials, with its own Hyper-V administrator credentials, and therefore you're able to manage the host from File Manager console. In the tree, you can see all of your hosts and clusters and virtual machines. So as you can see, clusters are also supported, and you can add clusters with add cluster function. So you just need to type in the address of your cluster. And you're also able to perform standard operations on your cluster nodes once they're added. So you can pause cluster node with draining or without draining rows and resume it back. So this really makes your life much easier when you're using clusters in your infrastructure. And of course, these are so important in current high available infrastructures. As virtual machines are listed, you can also see all of their icon statuses. So actually it takes just a split of a second to understand what kind of statuses of virtual machines do you have right now. They show you if virtual machine is running or if it's stopped, if it's saved, if it has any warnings, or if it is clustered, so if it's high available or not. So high available virtual machines are marked as magenta color, and the standalone ones are just blue one. So it's very easy to understand where this virtual machine belongs to. As of the right side, you can see the table that includes all virtual machines and parameters that are so important to view and understand in real time for each of the virtual machines. So of course, first column is name, then you can see the state of virtual machine, the CPU usage in real time, assigned memory, memory demand and memory status, uptime for the virtual machine, replication health, and host. All of these are very important to understand and view for your entire Hyper-V infrastructure for your virtual machines. Search field at the top is supposed to bring you much easier actions whenever you have multiple virtual machines to be managed. So it allows you to filter them out in a very fast manner, access needed a virtual machine, and surely that saves you quite a bit of time when you have more than 20 of them. Right now, let's have a look at host settings, and you can access the Hyper-V host settings via right-click menu and go in Hyper-V settings, or this dedicated icon on that. And as you can see, you can specify general, migration, and replication settings for each of your Hyper-V hosts. Migration and replication, especially replication, is supported for Hyper-V 2012 and up. Thus, you won't see that on Hyper-V 2008. But if you have this feature available on your Hyper-V host, that's going to be available for you within the Final Manager Hyper-V settings window. As you know, when you have a certain number of Hyper-V hosts, you tend to set all the Hyper-V settings in the same way, so that really makes your Hyper-V management a much easier task. And what we did to help you do that a bit faster, a bit more efficient, here's the apply settings to other hosts option that allows you to apply settings that you just configured on the general migration and replication tabs to your other Hyper-V nodes. And what you need to do, you just need to click the nodes that you want to apply these settings to, and pick up the checkboxes that you want to apply and hit apply button. So all the settings will go to that Hyper-V host, and you don't really have to go and access that separately. So that is really, actually, that's very time saving. As of new virtual machine creation process, Final Manager also makes that a very efficient one. And as you can see, the steps are pretty general, so you can specify the generation, assign memory, processors, the virtual switches, the virtual hard disks, installation options, and of course view the summary before you create that. But you can also configure the virtual machine and then save these settings into a virtual machine settings template. And this will later on allow you to create new virtual machines out of settings template in a much easier manner. So what you do, you just specify template name, and then it becomes available in the load virtual machine settings from a template drop down list. You can connect to Hyper-V host via RDP, that makes your infrastructure management much easier, because you don't have to have a separate remote management connections tool open. You can also connect to your virtual machines, and of course there are a couple options for you to choose from, so you can always connect via console and via RDP. So if you connect via RDP, you choose what you're going to use as an interface to connect to your virtual machine, and you see there's a drop-down list for that. These options are configurable. If you go to view options, you can see that guest console actually can be also one of two options. So either Microsoft One or free RDP based client that is actually effective for all Hyper-V core installations. And Smart Sizen is supposed to bring you ease of management, because virtual machine window always fits into a box of the console. And next, a very significant option that is also available in the Final Manager for Hyper-V is a notification option. This option allows you to configure the notifications for your virtual machines. And these notifications actually are so important, especially if someone else manages your virtual machines, or if you want to make sure that in any scenario you're going to be notified of our event happening with the virtual machine. So we've specified quite a few criteria for you, so let's briefly enable the email settings for that. So there are 9 conditions that you can use it for. Create new virtual machine, remove virtual machine, start virtual machine, restart virtual machine, or turn it off. So all of these operations with virtual machines are all equally important whenever you perform the configuration. Importing and exporting a virtual machine may be very important from a security perspective because you really want to know if someone tries to import a new virtual machine or export one. And of course, monitoring a virtual machine replication status or virtual machine configuration changes is going to be very helpful for you as well. So if you use replication, you really need to know if replication fails. For this, notifications to arrive to your mailbox, Final Manager for Hyper-V has to be running on one of your systems. It doesn't really matter what system it is running on. It can be a remote system, it can be locally on the Hyper-V host. It just sends you notifications while it's running. Just keep it running on one of your servers to receive notifications in here. Move option becomes available for you if a virtual machine is within the cluster. So actually it stands for live migration, and you can see these are live migration options. If you don't have a cluster setup, Move Wizard will allow you to move virtual machines and virtual machine storages between Hyper-V hosts. You just have to be running the same version of Hyper-V, or it also supports one-way migration from Hyper-V 2012 to Hyper-V 2012 R2. A clone and export functionality is essential if you run multiple virtual machines and if you tend to create new ones rather quick. So if you have at least 1 or 2 virtual machines created every single month, clone option is going to save you tremendous amount of time. So you can create clones of virtual machines, and you can create as many as you need with just a few clicks of a button. These are full clones of virtual machines, so you can create a golden template, a sysprepped image of your virtual machine that you can later use for creating your new virtual machines. And as this task can be rather time consuming, once you hit finish, you'll see the 2 background button that will allow you to send all time consuming tasks into background. This is actually very time saving, and this function allows you to perform management operations on your Hyper-V infrastructure without extra wait time. All the tasks that are sent to background, and actually all tasks performed in Final Manager for Hyper-V, are also logged in a task log. And in task log, you can see the progress of each of your tasks at the start and finish time, the host description, and all the statuses. That also is very helpful for you to understand what tasks are accomplished and what are still in progress, and if all of them are successful. On Virtual Network Manager tab, you can see all the virtual networks or virtual switches that are created in Hyper-V. These are very standard ones, the ones available in Hyper-V. You can create external, internal, and private ones, and you can manage extensions. So this is where you can do that in Final Manager for Hyper-V. On the System Status Report tab, this is the tab that allows you to generate a report about your Hyper-V host. And this report gives you an overview of your current Hyper-V setup, and it is especially useful if you have a configuration that you want to keep for later on, or if you want to share that with your customer, or if you just want to have all the information about all of your settings in one place. The report can be easily exported to Excel, PDF, or Word document, or printed out for future reference, and it includes host parameters like host time, uptime, and number of CPUs and memory, virtual switches, summary in a pie chart of virtual machines, the CPUs configurations, memory configurations, network, disks, current states including uptime, the integration services availability, and all of that is within the same report. It's very useful, and it's really supposed to save you time and give you a great understanding of what your Hyper-V host looks like. Best Practices Analyzer tab is an integrated Microsoft Best Practices Analyzer for you to use within your Hyper-V infrastructure. It's supposed to bring you understanding of Microsoft's best practices, and this is something that also can help you implement them right away within Finance Manager for Hyper-V. Hyper-V Logs tab is supposed to bring you an understanding of what's happening with your infrastructure with one single tab, because all of the Hyper-V logs are collected under the same tab, and as you can see, all of the ones that are meaningful are collected, and you can choose any one of them for you to check out your Hyper-V infrastructure. Finance Manager for Hyper-V is an easy-to-use and cost-effective management solution for Microsoft Hyper-V. It provides most of the features of Microsoft System Center Virtual Machine Manager that small and medium businesses need for everyday life Hyper-V management. Thank you for watching Finance Manager for Hyper-V overview.